regarding your pending RFAs?
We have. So we have a number of guys and we have a few guys that we're still in conversation with. So, we are still having conversations with Tomasino and Dewar, and the rest. I think we will non-qualify. We'll qualify Ponomarev as well, just to maintain his rights. I know he's signed in Russia, but they'll have the 3 years or however long to develop there, and we'll just keep a close watch on them.
And regarding your pending UFAs, you'll just allow them to go to tomorrow.
Yeah, we just think there's a with our current strategy, we're gonna see what's out there and see where we're at. Yeah.
How active do you expect to be tomorrow as far as signings? What kind of signings are you looking to add?
I think it's like we've discussed. They're not going to be the long range, big money guys in their 30s. It just doesn't fit at all with what we're going to do. And even if we could transition by the time this group here and the previous groups of draft picks and younger players are coming through, we don't want to have those types of deals at the back end. So we'll stay away from those. We've got lots of trade conversations on the go for all different types of players. We'll see the RFAs. You can start to talk to RFAs tonight at 7:00 from other teams, so we'll get a sense for what the market is for them and what their expectations are, because those are generally younger players that fit more with where we're at. So we'll get to that point. We'll start to have those conversations tonight here between Vuki, myself, and Spez, start to touch base with them. But the types of players that you could expect are not dissimilar from last summer. I would be surprised if unless they were RFAs or trade, that we would do long range deals with players. But we've got a number of players in mind that we think we can give good opportunity to, and they won't be the 1 year contracts, maybe 2 or 3, where we can see if they can be a long term part of what we're trying to do here and be a partner for when the team is back in contention.
Kyle, sort of a similar question I asked those 3 first rounders, but from your standpoint, how important is it to the greater construct of the team to see those guys develop at relatively the same rate? Or is it? Like, is each guy their own guy? Do they have to come up at the same time?
I would love it if we could get them all to October 7th or whatever it was going to be, and they were all ready to roll. I think in development, it's so different for each one of them, and each of them has a different path. I mean, Will's already in college at Michigan. Bill's a late birthday, and he's got the ability to go, he can go back to major junior. We've got to go through the CBA and whether those changes are now or later for the rumored stuff with the CHL NHL agreement and how that may impact things and things of that nature. And then Ben, obviously hugely talented guy. It's going to be depending on how what he learns in the next week, how he takes to strength and conditioning, power, and then how he's able to manifest that come training camp. So they're all very different types of players and people. They would be fantastic if they all debuted on the same day and then played for 20 years with the Penguins. I think Penguins have been pretty fortunate in having something like that in the past, but we have to do what's best for each of them individually and make sure that they're on the right path. But it's obviously from a very broad perspective, their development is the most important thing in the short run for us, for these young guys.
Did you find that all the picks that you gathered at the deadline in the spring carried the cachet and the currency that you wanted by the time it got to draft day, or did those picks not have enough pop and the maneuverability that you were trying to use them for?
Well, I think to move up in the first round, there was just no appetite for any team to move. Really, to get up in there, it would have been 11 and 12. And then but to answer your question more deeply, we were able to use a lot of those picks to move up. We moved up using the pick from the Beauvillier trade to go up and get Will Horkoff, which we paired with the pick that we got to trade down. So throughout the day, I think that that was present. I think in terms of actually trading for players, I don't think we ever expected that the picks in the 25 draft would see us trade for players. It'll be the future draft picks that teams are going to more want as we get into this next few days and throughout the summer. So I think they did enable us to move up to get Will from the Beauvillier trade, and which was hugely important for us and valuable for us.
Kyle, for so many years you've heard people say, well, he needs to work on his skating, or he needs to work on this or that. What have you found, just in your experience with the emphasis so much on development, where you've actually seen really good examples of players who started here and ended up here by virtue of all the things that you do?
I think the greatest example I've ever seen on the skating side, Staggy, is Mason Marchment. We signed him to an American League deal as an overage in Toronto, and I think he had the quote that you can look up, which is that he needed to learn to skate at 21 years old coming into pro hockey. And we didn't play him for a long stretch of the first year because he needed to build up the foundation. And you see the type of player he's turned into. It's in terms of, we traded him in Toronto. I think about it every day in terms of being a mistake, big one, probably one of the biggest for me. But he would be the player that I think of in terms of that's grown the most and developed the most in one specific area that comes up. And then there's any number of examples here, like to use it just to kind of focus on the recent past, a player that's a little bit older and how development, you got some of these guys here are 17. If you go to like guys that are 26, 27, Joona Koppanen last year, he came in from Boston. The first year was okay. Last year, he really deeply bought into the developmental program and the skating program, combined with the performance program in Wilkes. And objectively speaking, his skating improved 10 to 12% in terms of his speed and overall power. And we brought him back for another year because he's made those major gains in that area. So, there's that. There's the defensive piece, which is, at the beginning when they started, we focused so much on skill and offense and playmaking, and that's been I've had to adapt my view of that because and how are we going to improve these guys as defensive players, and so that's been a major focus, and you'll see it here this week. And then it's you look every year and watch the playoffs every year, and the ability to go back and retrieve a puck under immense pressure is hugely important. So we've started to build that in as a key centerpiece of everything we want in part of our program, and you'll see that throughout the development camp. It's not the most exciting stuff probably to come and watch as a fan or media member, but the guys are going to have to develop quickly a way to go back, collect rim pucks under immense pressure if we're going to win. So we're trying to build those key tenets into it. So I could talk about the development stuff for a long time, as you see, but yeah.
Kind of the possibility of trades. I know we asked you about Brian Ross, Ricardo Keller, Earl Carlson going back to the deadline, exit interview days. Has anything changed on that front in terms of if anyone ever expresses interest in them?
Yeah, I know more about the free agent market because of the calls we get on our veteran guys of teams saying, the market is nuts. We might have more interest in doing a deal or a trade. So we're going to evaluate everything. We're going to do what's best for the Penguins, but I mean, in one of those players' cases specifically, I mean, it means a lot to the team. He's been a part of the team for the 15 years since he was drafted. So unless it's something that it blows us away in terms of what it returns, and that it can very easily be looked at to help us return to contention, that'd be a tough one. But we've got lots of calls on him. He's a great player, signed, but he's also a massive member of the Penguins. So we'll continue to be open for business, but the price will be very high.
You appear to be at a point where some of these young players who were in Wilkes last year you're hoping that will push for an NHL job. So as you go into free agency and off season, how do you go about making sure that you're not blocking them? Do you set aside X number of roster spots while having some organizational depth in case they aren't ready?
Yeah. I think the key thing, Matt, is that we want these guys to earn it. So if we start just handing the guys spots, we're going to very quickly lose what I think the Penguins have been about for a very long time, and what's made the Penguins, a great team in the league for, since the early 90s. I think there's obviously cases of players who were exceptional talents for 2 decades that came in and played in the NHL right away. But there's also a deep history of guys that had to, Brian, we just talked about Brian Rust, Notre Dame, Wilkes-Barre, earn his way up, work his way all the way up and into the player that he's become today. So that's going to be a huge part that you'll see and hear from us, is that the guys have to earn their spot, and we're not going to block them, but they're going to have to go out and grab it, and they're going to have to come into camp, and some of them will go to Buffalo for the prospect showcase. It's going to be a very young group that goes there by virtue of the 13 draft picks. I think most of them, I think 10 of them are eligible to play in Buffalo. in September. So we'll, that'll be a start for them, plus some of the returning players, and then we'll have 7 exhibition games, and it's right there for them. We're not going to block them out, but they're going to have to prove that they can be here, and they're going to have to earn their way here. I think going back to the free agency part, that's why we won't be in on the long range players that are making 5 to 14 million or whatever they end up at in free agency. It'll be more players that can push those guys they think they can earn that opportunity that can help us as well. So it's trying to find that balance between not blocking players out, making them earn it, and also having enough depth to be competitive on a nightly basis.
Malkin's entering the Malkin's entering
We'll
take 3 more.
Yeah.
Malkin's entering the last year of his contract. Has any decision been made on his future beyond this season?
No. I talked to Gino at the end of the year in the exit meeting, and then followed up with him after the, and I get it. It's in his last year of his contract, and it's been a topic of discussion. But the way that we're going to approach it is we're going to go into the year, and then as I told Gino in his exit meeting, and then JP Barry when they started to kind of gather some steam, we'll meet at the international break or the Olympic break this year, see where Gino's at, and meet after the year. But yeah, there's I think it's strange. We get he's going to be 39, I think, Gino, at the end of July. So and he's still playing at a very high level for a player of that age, and obviously means a great deal to the community. So our major focus is on treating him right, pushing him to continue to be at his best this year, and do right by him by continuing to communicate with him on where he stands and handle it the right way as an organization.
I'm just going back to the draft for a second. It's not very often that you get the chance to draft 13 players. And there's just been a lot of discourse about quality versus quantity. How do you feel like you've hit on both in this draft, and how does this kind of that quantity of players help move you towards your goal of competing as soon as possible?
Well, I think the quantity part is objective. That we drafted a lot of players, and I think Wes phrased it the other day that there's risk in all of them, regardless from first to the 200s. None of them are sure things. So now it's on us. We drafted them all for a reason. We all think they have a path to play in the NHL. Whether they become quality, I think, is incumbent on the effort that they put in and the type of people that they are, but it's incumbent on us on the developmental side to get the most out of all of them, and I think that will be the quality of the class will be judged in the future. We've learned a lot of lessons over the time I've worked with Wes a long time. He's been the director in Toronto for the last 3 classes there that I was there, from 21 to 23. I guess we were at the very end of the process before I came here. And then obviously going back to the Sioux as well. So, we've kind of reflected back. There's some years have been really good. Others that we look back and say we could have done a better job. What have we learned from it? And I think the quality of the class will be judged here in the next 5 to 10 years when you look back and say, these guys are contributing members of a high quality team, or how and where did they miss? So it's on us now to get to work with them, and I think we've got a great plan for all of them, and Tom Gostopoulos and his staff and Jason Spezza and Amanda will get rolling here starting today. Yeah.
Does everyone finish the season with a medical situation?
Patrick for Seth on the questions. So,
Is everyone finish the season with a medical concern on path from? People who finish the season with injuries or medical concerns, are they all on schedule?
Boko is there's everyone is on schedule. Yeah, there's nothing that's come up that's a concern. Harrison Brunick will be on the ice here, and he's back. Rutger, McGroarty. The way we do it is if a guy's played a full year pro, we don't bring them back here. So Rutger won't be here, but he's back to 100%. Boko, he had the operation at the end of the year on the torn bicep. He'll be back.
Chris certainly looked.
Chris was active and Alex on Friday, so we thanked him for that. But yeah, there's nothing new to report there.
Josh has one question.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I was just curious, when you made the trade with Buffalo with the draft, obviously sent Timmins and his RFA status to Buffalo, but what about Connor Clifton? Was the draw and he was part of the piece that came back?
I mean, so there's 2 parts to it. There's the draft pick at 39 and then Clifton. When we were talking to them, I think we just felt that Clifton, when at his best, brings an element that we have not really had on the back end in my time here, which is he's a very highly competitive, physical guy that can be very difficult to play against, won't back down from anybody, and I think brings a lot of fire to the game each night. And so that was something we haven't had. It's obviously, I don't think the time in Buffalo has gone the way he wanted to, or the team wanted it to there, but we've got a lot of familiarity. Dan actually tried to recruit him to Yale before he went to Quinnipiac, and so there's a long history, and I think it's a player that he's going into his last year of his contract, and with what he brings competitively plus the defensive side, we just think it's a great opportunity to try to get the most out of him. And it's tough with Connor Timmins, as you know. I've got a long history with Connor, but going back to the deadline, we gave up a 5th round pick to get he and Connor Dewar in, and so to be able to go, and we looked at it that way. It's tough with Timmins. He's got a year left before he's a UFA, so they're both on the precipice, he and Clifton, of being unrestricted and out of team control, and just felt it was the best move for us right now, and also to add an element that we lack back there.